said is, gee, now that you can hit things one at a time and inhibit, wouldn't it be great if you could bring multiple things together? And that's one of the points. Tetravalent also means up to tetrafunctional. It's not just inhibiting one thing, it's literally binding 2 or 3 different proteins. And sometimes that is, again, inhibitory. If one punch doesn't knock you out, maybe cancer needs 2 or 3, and we're literally doing that. So one idea, maybe rather than tetra, whatever, multivalent, I can say multifunctional. Yeah, if cancer relies on 3 pathways, why not make one drug that hits all 3? Well, up until this technology, it simply wasn't possible. Everybody looked, and that's technical. But as you know, technical things are one of the big limits. Of course, when we had the first antibody drugs like Herceptin, which looked like natural antibodies, had one activity, we said, wouldn't it be great if we could make one of these that does 3 things at the same time? Like, yes, I just happened to take us 20 years to finally book that ticket and get where we're going. But we have done it, so it is going to be a new era. And one of the biggest things, and that's why I'd like to see if we can put together a few slides, because it is really what's happening on a cell. When I show those, this is what the protein looks like. It actually does exist. Those aren't made up things. So the idea that cells have hundreds or thousands of different proteins on them, and you bring 2 of those together, something happens. Insulin is a good example. If you look at the symptoms of insulin, it's like, my God, this must be an incredibly complex disease because sugar levels are going crazy. People are having comas, they're getting diabetic retinopathy. But who would have believed that disease can, for the very most part or not all, come down to one little protein called insulin? So that's just one example. You're like, oh my God, this is such a complex disease. We're hoping Alzheimer's will be similar. It's like, this is just so intractable. It's neurons decaying, amyloids. It must be impossible. But then you find one thing, and you go, oh, that's all it took. So finding the right signal can have huge effects. So that's what we're hoping, that now we can signal on rather than off. We'll have a whole new series of therapies. How much can you control it? In other words, turn this on, turn this off. Here's the saving grace of human and other biology. Extremely complicated, can't get away from that. But signaling turns on literally programs. So you're thinking, oh my God, there's 50 proteins involved in a cell growing, i.e. a red blood cell, which we've done. The beautiful thing is, the messenger, it literally flows through the blood, binds the outside of the cell, and is called signal transduction. It then sends a signal, and that single signal can turn on 50 or 100 things. So it's these little packages. So that's the saving grace. You're like, how do anemia, we're working on that now, and you could say, for God's sake, it's a red blood cell. It has to first replicate its DNA. That's an event. Then it has to build a new membrane. Then it has to divide. How could you possibly do all of that? The good news is you don't have to, because that's a program. So when you find, in this case, the one protein, erythropoietin, not magically, but logically, that one protein binds, sends a signal. And the signal is, hey, cell, turn on 100 proteins, turn these 50 off, and go make one cell into 2. So that's the cool thing. Or insulin is like all these complicated effects, but it binds, and if you look at what it does inside the cell, the signal it transduces, suddenly 30 things may go on, another 20 things go off, another 50 things move from here to here. So those are these hardwired programs that have evolved, and who knows how many of those there are, maybe thousands. So you can tap into these things. Believe me, otherwise we'd all be screwed. It's like, you're not going to build one red blood cell and have it turn into two. But because it's done it through evolution, there's a program. And that's why signaling is the right word for it, because it's a message that then automatically turns on maybe 100 different things that must work together. Some go up, some go down. Literally some proteins move from here to there. And what's super cool is that one message tapped into, it's like, it's like a computer program. I'm going to turn on PowerPoint. Well, actually what you're turning on is a huge code that suddenly allows you to do 50 different things and it's even better than that, because this automatically taps in and says, if you can have these huge effects from one protein among, because with these proteins we're adding one protein in a mix of trillions of cells and tens of thousands of other proteins. So it is quite profound. You just inject it and say, oh, what do you know? Now we got 5% more red blood cells, and we've achieved that. But yeah, if it can also say, oh, what do you know? You just killed something. Yeah, these are very powerful effects. So the effects of these simple signaling, and that's what we're always looking for powerful effects. I mean, we don't want to find a signal that just turns your hair from white to gray, which you probably could. You want to find something that regenerates bone. But the cool thing is, once you find it, it can be no more complicated than a single protein. Therapeutics now exist for a single protein that allows bone to regenerate. A single protein which we discovered that allows the eye's blood vessels to form correctly. Because you're thinking, how do you get blood vessels? If you look at them on a microscope, they're incredible. They're like a spider's web. And like, geez, that must be near impossible. Well, if you send the right signal, this program it's like night and day, literally. You go from blind mice to mice that can see. And the exciting thing is there may be many more signals than we think there are, right? There could be a signal that says, hey, you know what? Instead of losing 1% muscle mass every year after the age of 40, don't do that anymore. Good. And then suddenly, you could look at that. Or if there's a signal that says, instead of neurons gradually decaying after the age of 60, please stop doing that. That's what I'm not, oh my God, your brain is decayed, you have Alzheimer's, now we're going to try to fix it. You just tell the brain, you're getting close to 60. Statins for high blood pressure are a good example. You don't get a statin because you have a heart attack. You get a statin because, oh, you know what? If you do this, it just tells the body to produce less cholesterol on average, and you'll never have a heart attack. So, if you can discover signals that are simple, just say, hey, brain cells, instead of not growing, can you grow moderately every year? And that could be achievable, I think. So then you never get the disease, right? So that's the other advantage of turning signals on, because clearly you don't want to deal with a train wreck. You just want the train to be on the right track to begin with.